Well, good evening and welcome to our presentation tonight for the Archdiocese of Regina. This is being hosted by the Reverence for Life Commission. Before we begin, Tasha Tupin is going to screen share the Reverence for Life prayer that many of our parishes around the diocese have been praying this month. So if you'd like to join me, that would be great. And it's up right now and we'll pray together. In the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit.
Amen.
O Mary, to you do we entrust the cause of life. Sorry, Tasha, it's blocked off.
Allison, if you can unmute yourself, I just muted everybody.
Sorry.
There you
Okay,
go.
I can't, yeah. Okay, my apologies, we'll start again.
No worries.
O Mary, to you do we entrust the cause of life. Look down, O Mother, upon the vast number of babies not allowed to be born, on the poor whose lives are made difficult, on those who are victims of brutal violence, on the elderly and sick killed by indifference or misguided mercy. We ask for the grace to accept gospel of life as a gift ever new, and the courage to bear witness to it, to the praise and glory of God, the creator and lover of life. Amen. In the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. Welcome. I would like to begin by acknowledging that we are on the traditional lands referred to as Treaty 4 territory, the original lands of the Cree, Ojibwe, Saulteaux, Dakota, Nakota, Lakota, and on the homeland of the Métis Nation. Welcome, everyone. Before I go on to introduce our panel of guests this evening, I just want to give a quick explanation of the Zoom features we are encouraging you to use. During the presentations, with the exception of the panelists, your mics will be muted. If you sense your sound is cutting out, we suggest that you may want to turn off your camera while the speaker is presenting. After each panelist has had a chance to speak about their organization, we will open it up to questions. Please use the chat box to submit your questions. If there are any technical difficulties, I encourage you to send them in the chat box to Tasha Tupin. She is the Social Justice Coordinator for the Archdiocese of Regina and is providing the much needed technical support this evening. Please note, this event is being recorded. My name is Allison Bradish, and I will be moderating this event. My husband Rob and I live in Moose Jaw, Saskatchewan, and have 2 children. I am a member of the St. Joseph Pastoral Council and the St. Joseph Social Justice Committee, as well as a board member of many community organizations, including Moose Jaw Right to Life. I also write for the Archdiocese of Regina webpage. Over the years, I have tried to understand some of the reasons why we have become, as Pope Francis puts it, a throwaway culture, to the extent that we treat human life as a commodity rather than a precious gift. This evening, we are going to hear from 4 panelists working for various organizations dedicated to helping people at all stages of life, be it through outreach to the vulnerable, promoting ethical healthcare, walking with those who find themselves with an unplanned pregnancy, and work in the field of political advocacy. They each have different gifts, vocations, and a great deal of passion about their work. Before we begin, I'm going to invite Mike Morris, Chair of the Reverence for Life Commission, who is hosting this event, to give us a few words. Over to you, Mike.
Thank you, Allison. In his message for the World Day of Peace on January 1st of 2013, Pope Benedict XVI drew our attention to those who are on the front lines working to promote life. He identified them as the true peacemakers of the world. Quote, "Peacemakers are those who love, defend, and promote life in its fullness," end quote. To assist the Archdiocesan Church in its vocation to promote life and to respond to the distressing failure of our culture to recognize and value all life, especially life in its early stages, Bishop Daniel Bowen established on January 13th of 2013, the feast of the baptism of our Lord, the Archdiocesan Commission for Reverence for Life. This commission works in close cooperation with the Archdiocesan Social Justice Office and has as its mandate the promotion of reverence for life, human life in all its stages within the Archdiocese of Regina. As well, in consideration of the magnitude of the challenge and the need for the active participation by the whole Archdiocesan Church, and to help the Reverence for Life Commission coordinate its work, Bishop Bowen proclaimed that at that point, October, would be henceforth established as a month especially dedicated to the celebration of the value and dignity of human life in the Archdiocese of Regina. This took effect in 2013 and has been celebrated since until last year, which we moved it, it was moved to May, and here we are, a Reverence for Life Month 2021. And so that's who we are, and that's what we do. And I hope everyone enjoys the evening.
Thank you. So our first guest that we will hear from is Mary Heilman. She is the ethicist for St. Paul's Hospital in Saskatoon and the Catholic Health Association of Saskatchewan. She received her doctorate in public policy from the University of Saskatchewan and has taught as a sessional lecturer through St. Thomas More College. She developed an interest in bioethics through her love of science fiction and lives in Saskatoon with her husband and one-year-old daughter. The Catholic Health Association of Saskatchewan, CHAS, was formed in 1943 to be a voice for Catholic hospitals and long-term care facilities, and to protect and promote Catholic healthcare in Saskatchewan. Catholic healthcare is evolving as we face the increasing use of technology and the decreasing numbers of sisters in ministry in our facilities. CHAS continues to serve the needs of today by offering leadership, education, and resources in ethics, mission, spiritual care, and social justice. Their mission has brought in to engage the parishes and public in the important ministry of Catholic healthcare. Welcome, Mary.
Thank you very much, Allison. Can everyone hear me okay? Yeah, good. All right, so for today, for this evening, I've been asked to bring us up to date on medical assistance in dying, particularly from a Catholic perspective. So I thank you for the lovely introduction about who CHAS is, the Catholic Health Association, which I'm representing. I think I won't have to go over that in more detail unless there's questions about it later. But I'd like to take the bit of time I have with you here, about 10 minutes or so, just to run over some of the basics of medical assistance in dying as we kind of move it into that larger conversation about life that we're going to have. So the first thing I'd like to mention is you'll notice me using this term medical assistance in dying. It's a Canadian term, very specific to Canada, to talk about what has been legalized in our country. So in Canada, we have legalized euthanasia and assisted suicide. Euthanasia is the intentional taking of someone's life, usually to end suffering, by another person, so usually a physician who is injecting a drug. And assisted suicide is when someone is given a drug to take their own life. Both of those things have been made legal under this Canadian law. And dying. So I just thought I should run over that terminology to start us off. So when we look at this from the Catholic perspective, I think it's really key to separate the Catholic perspective into sort of two things that we're concerned about. The first is on the legal side of things. The Catholic Church is very concerned about what will happen to vulnerable persons in Canada under this law. So it has been 5 years since MAID was legalized in Canada. And since that time, I think we have seen pressure put on vulnerable persons, specifically people with disabilities, people who have mental illnesses, and people who are nearing the end of their life to choose this. And that is one of our primary concerns coming at this from the Catholic faith. In addition to those vulnerable people, kind of what message does it send to the rest of society, a culture? What does that do to us as a society when we say that there are certain people who belong in a group that we would no longer want to fight for, want to fight to save, and have them find meaning in those moments of their life? So I mentioned there's sort of two areas. One is that legal side, which I think is very critical right now in Canada. The other side is what I'm going to call the Christian side of the equation. And this is, what message do we have for individuals who might be considering medical assistance in dying, might be considering euthanasia or assisted suicide? What I think is really at the heart of the church's opposition to these things is our respect for life. That not only do we feel that we are not the authors of life and death, that we feel that this belongs with our Creator, with God, but we also find that there is extreme value in those last moments of life, that there is meaning in our suffering. And that's a much harder message to get across. You know, I think we can communicate how we're feeling about vulnerable people. We can advocate for more protections placed in the law, but to sit down with someone and talk to them about suffering and saying that it's not just meaningless, not something that has no value, but to help them find value for it. And particularly from a Christian perspective, to link that suffering to the cross, that's a much longer conversation to have with people. And quite frankly, sometimes our society isn't ready to have that conversation. So I think it will be a continual challenge for those of us who are Christian to keep advocating for suffering that has value. And the last thing that I want to say from that Christian piece of it is that we also believe that in those final moments of life, that there are always opportunities for healing, that we never get to a point where someone's life stops having meaning for us, because there will always be another opportunity to share, another opportunity to heal together, another opportunity to show our caring for each other. So some very key things from our Christian faith, from our Catholic perspective. All right, so why the Catholic Health Association? Why would it be someone from our group who's coming to talk to you? One of the reasons is because we are a membership-based organization, and our members are the Catholic facilities scattered throughout the province. So there's 15 facilities that make up our membership. And all of them have expressed a conscientious objection to medical assistance in dying and will not provide it in our facilities. This has been something that we have had to maintain, and thankfully we've been able to work in partnership with the Saskatchewan Health Authority to ensure that that isn't violated, our conscientious objection. We also want to take the time to advocate for nurses and physicians and pharmacists and any other member of the healthcare team who may feel pressured into participating, that this shouldn't be something that someone is required to do. All right, can you tell me how much time I have left, Allison? Oh, caught her off guard with the question.
No, go ahead. You have a few more minutes.
Okay, great.
It's all good.
Well, I thought it would be valuable to, in just this little bit of time I have for a preamble, to share a bit of the changes that have been going on in Canadian law. So just a few months ago, amendments were made to the Canadian law as it is. So I just thought it was a good idea to cover that. So in Canada, it used to be that you needed to be near the end of your life to access medical assistance in dying. But they recently changed that. So you no longer have to be near the end of your life. And what they did was they established a two-track system. So if you are near the end of your life, you can access medical assistance in dying. You don't need to go through a waiting period to do that. If you are not near the end of your life, let's say you suffer from a chronic illness that is leading you to make this choice, you do have to go through a 90-day reflection period. So that separates it out into two tracks, but it opens it up to a much larger group of people. I will say that even from members of the medical assistance in dying team, I've heard that this has created some I want to say just problems in terms of how do we protect the most vulnerable. And I think from a Catholic perspective, we've always had that problem, but now that's been even more expanded. So for example, if someone is in an accident and loses the ability to walk, let's say they have a spinal injury, we do have good research that states that it can take up to 5 years for someone to become adjusted to that situation. And yet the waiting period to access medical assistance in dying is only 90 days. So how do we manage those situations where somebody very likely could have a change of perspective as they learn to live with their disease? But under Canadian law, they technically do qualify for this. So that's going to be a struggle that I think we see play out in our healthcare system with this new change in the law. The other thing that happened with this change in the law, sort of a last minute addition to it, was that the government said that a year from the passage of that law, so about 11 or 10 months away now, medical assistance in dying will become legal for people who only have a mental health concern. So right now, if you are seeking out euthanasia or assisted suicide and you have a mental illness, you can only seek it out if you have a physical ailment that's leading you to this request. A year from now, that mental health concern alone will be enough to qualify for medical assistance in dying, unless there's a change. So when we look to the future, I would encourage everyone to think about advocacy to help protect the groups that the government might look to expanding this towards. And I also want us to think about how this is affecting our own communities too. I think there's going to be tremendous wounds that come out of these legalizations. I think already throughout our community, it's been 5 years since MAID was legalized. And I think we're all starting to hear stories of people we know who have chosen this, some of them further away from us, but some of them together to find healing after these deep wounds. All right, well, that was my brief blurb, my brief hello. I'm really looking forward to the panel and any questions that people might have on this very important topic. Thank you very much, Allison.
You're welcome. Thank you, Mary, and thank you for adding those few minutes there, because that gives us a lot of context and input into what is happening in our country. So our next presenter is Sister Avelina Joseph. And I'd like to welcome her. She was born in the Philippines and then grew up in Vancouver, Canada. She graduated from Simon Fraser University in Vancouver, BC with a degree in biology. She entered the Sisters of Life in 2014 and professed first vows on August 3rd, 2017. The Sisters of Life are a religious community of women founded in 1991 by John Cardinal O'Connor, who take a fourth vow to protect and enhance the sacredness of human life. Immersed in Eucharistic prayer within a vibrant community life, their missions include caring for vulnerable pregnant women and their unborn children, inviting those wounded by abortion into the healing mercy of Jesus, fostering a culture of life through evangelization, retreat works, spiritual accompaniment of college students, and upholding the beauty of marriage and family life. Welcome, Sister Avelina.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. I'm Sister Avelina.
And I'm Sister Antoniana Maria.
We are the Sisters of Life, and it is such a joy to be with you in this Life is Good, or Life is a Gift conference, so thank you. Could everyone hear us okay? Okay. If you need us to speak up, please let us know. We're actually both originally from Vancouver, and so we feel united with all of you on the West, even though right now we're in Toronto. So yeah, one day we arranged a birthday party for one of the mothers we served. I'll call her Sarah. And she suffered a lot in her childhood and had experienced several abortions before she met with us during her last pregnancy 5 years ago. In that pregnancy, she heroically chose life and loved her daughter into life. And every day now, she affirms her daughter in how good she is and loves her every single day. And so this has sunk deep in this little girl's heart. So during this party, one sister asked this little girl, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" And she said without hesitation, "Me." And that was very profound to us. it's clear that Sarah's love and affirmation of this little girl has built such a strong foundation in her heart that she doesn't want to be anyone else but herself when she grows up. And I share this story to you in the beginning to highlight that healing is possible after abortion. As Sisters of Life, we lay down our lives to protect human life, like Mary was saying. And we believe that each human life, from conception to natural death, has a unique imprint of God. You and I are good, loved, and unrepeatable, whether we're newborn, unborn, graduating from high school, or homebound. Our lives have meaning and purpose. But it's so easy to forget that in our world today. And we're up against a culture that denies that truth to the most vulnerable. And that's why we walk with women who are struggling with an unexpected pregnancy, giving them the love and support they need to have their children. And that's why we offer retreats to women and men so that they can encounter the life-giving love of Jesus. And that's why we accompany women who have experienced abortion to the healing and freedom you can find in Jesus. There is no sin bigger than God's mercy. Women who have experienced abortion often suffer silently and alone. They don't feel like they have permission to express their pain. And when they do share their grief, oftentimes they're met with comments like, just move on. It's not a big deal. And so the term for this is called disenfranchised grief, when the whole society is not able to confirm or affirm the fact that grief is real here. So last week we spoke with a woman and she shared with us her whole story, and she said to us, "Sister, I have never shared my whole story to anyone but you all before." And the thing is, her experience of abortion was more than 30 years ago. So for most of those 30 years, she carried this pain alone. We found that when a woman contacts us and shares that she's experienced abortion in the past, it's important for her to share her whole story, to let her cry, to let her express her feelings of remorse, of pain, of regret, of sorrow, of confusion. And we sit and we listen. And that is often the hardest part, to sit, to listen, and not to interrupt. By doing this, we give her permission to grieve and to mourn. With that said, many women do not feel a tsunami of emotions or a tsunami of remorse immediately after their abortion. Abortion impacts a woman's heart, her psychology, her body so deeply that it is considered a trauma. And whenever we experience a trauma, our body naturally puts up defense mechanisms so that we can survive, so that we can continue to function. Some women that we serve there's a memory block. They can't remember anything about the abortion experience. They can't remember where it was done. They can't remember anything of the procedure. They can't even remember the day of the procedure, nothing. And then for many of the women that we are currently serving, a decade or more has passed since they've had their abortion, when they've had time to realize its effects in their lives. So if anyone ever comes to you, or if you ever find someone who've experienced abortion who is close to you and who don't express remorse, or who don't express their desire for healing after abortion, that's okay. That's actually quite normal. We just invite you to lovingly invite them to consider post-abortion healing resources within 2 weeks after their experience, and then just to wait. It might take time, and they might just not be ready to engage the healing journey yet. Other women that we're serving do feel the effects of abortion immediately. So one woman I was speaking to said that after her first abortion, she began to experience insomnia. And some other women say that they experience nightmares, anxiety, depression, self-hatred, and a repulsion to triggers like diaper commercials, pregnant women, and birthday parties. The woman I spoke about in the beginning, Sarah, we're journeying with her too, that she might find hope and healing after her abortion. Maternity is forever. Sarah is still the mother of the children she lost through abortion, and is part of the healing process to recover and to develop a relationship with each child lost through abortion. So sometime along their healing journey, we encourage them to pray about and choose a name for each of their children. And we also encourage them to pray for their children and to ask for their prayers, because we believe that they are like the holy innocents who are with God. One of the women we served in New York named her daughter Anne. And whenever she shares her testimony about hope and healing after abortion, she would introduce herself as the mother of Anne. And she has such a deep bond and relationship with her daughter that when she speaks about her daughter, it's as if she's just in a room next door. Healing is possible after abortion, and spiritual maternity is real. We are also in contact with a handful of great counselors who are professionally trained to counsel women who have suffered through traumatic experiences. We often ask for their support as we journey with women who are suffering from abortion, the wounds of abortion. And although we are not professionally trained as counselors, as Christians, we have a great gift to offer these women, which the world cannot. And that gift is Jesus Christ. Jesus Christ is the healer, and he transforms lives. We serve women of all faith backgrounds, Christian, Buddhist, Muslim, and women with no faith background. But regardless of their faith background, when they invite Jesus into their healing journey, Jesus always comes, and Jesus always brings healing. He brings peace, and he brings hope. As Catholics, we have a particular gift to invite women into, and that is the sacrament of reconciliation, the sacrament of confession. One time we held a weekend retreat for a group of women who have suffered from abortion. And one woman came who had her experience more than 3 decades ago. And when she came to us on that Friday evening, she was so downcast. She couldn't even lift her eyes to look at us. And sometime during that retreat, she received the grace to go to confession. And afterwards, she felt so free and joyful that she did cartwheels on our backyard. Jesus is in the business of transforming lives even today. Abortion is a choice that a woman has to live with for the rest of her life. Many women tell us that there doesn't go a day where they don't think about their abortion experience. What would her child have looked like? In every baby shower, in every birthday party, and other family gatherings, they wonder, what would their life look like if their child was alive? There is healing after abortion, but it is a process. It does not happen overnight. It takes heroic courage to enter into their hearts and face the truth of the choice that they made. And that is why whenever we speak about abortion, we always do so in the context of God's mercy. Women who have experienced abortion already suffer enough. They already feel the need to punish themselves. They do not need condemnation, they need compassion, and God cares for them. So I wish to end my talk by speaking about the importance of language. We are called to proclaim the truth that every life is a gift, every life is precious and is worthy of love and protection. This is a mission that is needed now more than ever. And statistics show, and we must always combine truth with love. And statistics show that 1 in every 4 or 1 in every 3 women have suffered from abortion. And there's not a lot of difference between Catholics and non-Catholics in that statistic. So chances are whenever we speak about abortion in a group setting, a few women in the group have most likely suffered its effects directly. We cannot support abortion because of the harm it inflicts upon women, upon families, and upon communities. But we are called to show mercy to those who have suffered from this. We also see the power of words in our mission to women experiencing unexpected pregnancies. When a woman in an unexpected pregnancy asks a friend, or a sibling, I just found out I'm pregnant. What do you think I should do? Many women tell us that it is not helpful for them to hear, I will support you whatever you decide. When they hear that, they feel very alone. It's as if the choice is all on you. I'm not going to help you with this. And so when they hear those words, I'll support you whatever you decide, even though most of the times it's said with very good intentions, she interprets those words as saying, I'm also afraid for you. I think you should have an abortion. Instead, what she was looking to hear, that's why she's asking you for support, is you can do this. I believe in you. I'll be there for you and you are not alone. These words can often be a life changer and give her the little boost that she needs to believe in herself and her capacity to be a good mother. Words are powerful. Sarah, the mother from the beginning, the story at the beginning, told us that she has a little note card in their mirror. And whenever she and her daughter would brush her teeth, they would look at that note card and read it. And it says, you are a person who matters. Now show the world what people who matter can do. Imagine if you have a mother telling you every day that you are good, that your life matters, that your love is a gift to the world. How would it impact the way you see yourself? Abortion is not the end of the story. It does not define your identity. The truth is, each of us is a beloved daughter, a beloved son of God. We have a good Father in heaven who delights simply that we are. And like Sarah, he says to us every day, I am so glad that you exist. You are good. I love you. St. John Paul II showed us the face of this merciful Father. And he was also an actor who knew the power of words. He gave one of the most powerful addresses to women who have suffered the wound of abortion, where he eloquently expresses both truth and mercy. And so I just want to close with his words. This is from Evangelium Vitae. The Church is aware of the many factors which may have influenced your decision, and she does not doubt that in many cases it was a painful and even shattering decision. Certainly, what happened was and remains terribly wrong, but do not give in to discouragement and do not lose hope. Try rather to understand what happened and face it honestly. If you have not already done so, give yourselves over with humility and trust to repentance. The Father of mercies is ready to give you his forgiveness and his peace in the sacrament of reconciliation. To the same Father and his mercy, you can with sure hope entrust your child. With the friendly and expert help and advice of other people, and as a result of your own painful experience, you can be among the most eloquent defenders of everyone's right to life. Amen. So God bless you all and thank you for including us. And we'll be present for the question and answers afterwards. God bless.
Thank you so much. Our next three presenters are all associated with the organization Birthright. And so I will introduce them now. Oze Argerami is the oldest of 8 children. She just finished her Bachelor of Arts in Psychology with a minor in Catholic Studies at Campion College. She is currently working at Hello Baby in Regina. She has been involved with Birthright Regina for a couple years, volunteering in a variety of different ways. Jenna Daly is a 22-year-old student at the University of Saskatchewan, entering the College of Medicine. She grew up in Regina, where she was involved with the Archdiocese of Regina. Jenna has been a volunteer with Birthright for a year. Sharon Martorana has been a volunteer with Birthright since 2002 and was the director until 2015. Sharon now serves as the chair of the board of Birthright in Regina. It has been great to work with so many volunteers and board members over the years, and Sharon is honored and humbled by the trust women and girls have placed in Birthright. Birthright understands the challenges related to unplanned pregnancies, and they are available to women as long as they are needed. The organization offers love, friendship, and support to women who are pregnant or think they may be pregnant. It is an interdenominational organization. Birthright is not involved in any political activities or lobbying. Their focus is on loving the mother, reminding her that there is hope, and ensuring she is not alone. Services include information about pregnancy, childbirth, adoption, prenatal care, community programs, parenting skills, and childcare. They offer referrals for various services, such as public assistance, medical support, financial resources, housing, legal, social assistance, and professional counseling. Birthright also offers free pregnancy tests, maternity and baby items. They have a 24/7 free helpline, 1-800-550-4900, and a live chat through their website. So welcome, ladies.
Hi, so my name is Jose, and thank you, Allison, for that introduction. I have been volunteering for a couple of years now. My mom, Romina, is the director at Birthright and has been since January 2019. And she was a volunteer long before that. So I've been helping her with different things throughout the years. Occasionally either driving girls to their doctor's appointments or dropping things off, and the things like that. Last year I started helping in the office with Jenna, and we would go once a week and answer phone calls, receive people that were coming for donations or people who were coming to try on maternity clothes or pick up layettes. And then now Jenna is back in Saskatoon. And so I have been going to the office with one of our new volunteers, Nicole. She is also a university student. And in the past year, I've also helped with some of the more design related elements of Birthright. I've been designing some of the new posters, our new business cards, which you may have seen around. I also designed a new website, which I just wanted to quickly share if I am able to. So this is the new Birthright Regina website. We have been adding our office hours here because they've been changing a little bit depending on the pandemic and what was allowed. So currently our office is open. And so we just have that update there. You can kind of see what Birthright is. We show what some of our services are, and we have more information about everything. We've added some testimonials that people have left us in the past. We also have a contact option, and we've actually noticed that several people have contacted us through this. This goes directly to our Birthright email, so that's been a really helpful feature. We have a map to show people where we're located. I made sure to place our email, our phone number, the helpline, all of that information in as many places as I could around the website. You can actually donate directly through the website. This donate button will take you to a page that will allow you to donate directly online. We have lots of links to our Instagram and our Facebook, to other buttons that will allow you to call us or to send us an email directly from the website. And we've seen a lot of movement and a lot of response coming from the website. So it's been very rewarding to see that, to see the fruit of that work. Yeah, and that's kind of all I had to say about the work that I've been doing. Recently, we've been working with kind of more consistently with a few people. We have had a few young girls who have been coming to us, and some of those girls are doing really well. One of them just completed her university degree. Another was struggling to find a place to live for a while, but she did end up finding a place, and so we've been helping her with that. She is also working now. So it's been really nice lately to see that. We continue to get donations quite regularly, so that's been good. And we still see a lot of people interested in layettes. Mostly has been a pretty recent interest that people have. So for those who aren't familiar, we provide, all of our services are free. And one of the things that we offer is what we call a layette. So we have them organized by boy and girl, and then from small, medium to large. And so after someone has a baby, they can contact us and we can either drop off a layette or they can come pick us up. And basically it's a bag that contains some baby clothes, some diapers, wipes, pacifiers and bottles, some blankets, some toys, some socks, just all sorts of things that they might need to get started. And so we've been giving out quite a few of those recently. So that's been really good to see.
Yeah, I was really struck by what the Sisters of Life were saying right before we came on here, how they were discussing that people in these vulnerable situations need compassion, not condemnation. And they also are really searching for someone to not just tell them to make a choice, but to actually help guide them through that and tell them they will have support if they continue with the pregnancy. And I was really excited because that's exactly what Birthright does. We kind of fill that slot. You know, we have women who will come in, and that's the exact type of counseling we give them. We don't say, you know, it's your choice, you should go do that, but like whichever, we explain to them how they'll be supported. We help them through that process directly, not just leave them up to a choice. So I think it's really powerful work, and I'm really excited that you see a need for it, sisters, because it makes me really confident in what Birthright's doing. Yeah.
So Birthright started in Toronto in 1968, and I think we're the first service like this worldwide. The person that started us felt that there was really nothing for the women who were pregnant, and our one and only goal is to help that woman. Our motto is we believe every pregnant woman has the right to give birth, and every baby has the right to be born. And anything and everything that we could do to help that woman make that decision, we're sort of available for. Our motto, our little signia is a bee with an old-fashioned telephone in there. And what it means is that we're always there, a phone call away. We certainly would rather talk to people face to face, but because we have a 24-hour hotline and always have, there's never a time when someone in need couldn't contact us. I think that the big thing that Birthright does is we listen. We listen and we ask, how can we help? What can we do? How can we walk with you through this situation? We really believe that the essence of Birthright is love, and that if we love people, they have enough love in their lives to love their babies and their life and themselves. And so we are completely funded by donations. So we are always awestruck by how we are not just part of a community, but we feel like we're the service of the community who call us to do this work. We feel that we're always available. And we really feel, I think, quite humbled that this is a situation that people actually come to and trust us with their lives and what they need. I know many, many people have walked through the doors, and I've been there, and each time I've been really, really struck by how special this is, how special that particular person was, by their courage and their attempt to do the right thing. And so I guess when I think about Birthright and the times that I volunteered there, I just can do nothing but be filled with gratitude. I used to say, I don't know if the best people in Regina volunteer for Birthright, or they volunteer for Birthright and they become the best people in Regina. But I've always been profoundly struck, not just by the people who come to us for service, but the incredible gift each of the volunteers have been. And I think that that's the second goal of Birthright, that it really makes us wonderful people, really aware and able to serve.
Thank you. Our final guest is Scott Hayward. He's a chartered accountant from Brandon, Manitoba, and president and co-founder of Right Now, a political pro-life organization focused solely on nominating and electing pro-life politicians, federally and provincially. Scott earned his Bachelor of Business Administration degree from Brandon University in June of 2012 and earned his Chartered Accountancy designation in June 2015. In September 2015, Scott left public practice and began to work full-time in the political pro-life movement. In January 2016, he co-founded Right Now with Alyssa Globe. Over the last 5 years, Right Now has been successful in numerous nominations and elections, having nominated 165 pro-life politicians, and 150 of them have been elected to public office. Welcome, Scott.
All right, thanks for the introduction. I'll try and keep my presentation relatively quick here since we're at the very end. And I'm going to try and share my screen as well. And hopefully this works for everyone. So I know that a number of you, I know already through our organization and our supporters, some of you are donors, for which we're very grateful. But there's also a number of you I know, or pardon me, I know that we don't know each other yet. So it'll be good to do this quick introduction. So our basic presentation is how can we win politically in the pro-life movement? The future of the pro-life movement is in your hands. So like Allison said, my name is Scott. I'm from the small farming city in Western Manitoba called Brandon, home of the Wheat Kings, who we had a pretty good year this year, actually, despite the COVID-19 restrictions. And yeah, so my bit more about my background is I started following politics like a normal person when I was 10 years old on a daily basis. And when I was 14, I purchased my first membership in a political party. Since then, I've been involved in hundreds of campaigns, whether it be nominations or leadership races, federal elections, provincial elections, by-elections, all the way through. I earned my designation as a CPA in 2015. And a little bit before that, my colleague, Alyssa Globe, she was going across Canada. She was working for a different organization at that time. And she came to Brandon to do a presentation on what's happening politically within the pro-life movement. And so we had struck up a friendship. And over the next couple of years, she encouraged me, cajoled me, you could even say threatened me, to leave public practice and go work full-time in the political pro-life movement. So needless to say, it was a severe pay cut, but I much more enjoyed my time and have enjoyed my time doing what I do now as opposed to being in public practice. So away, I moved 2,500 kilometers all the way to downtown Toronto. And if the sisters are in Toronto, they'll know what I'm talking about here. I lived like in the heart of Toronto. So I lived at Dundas and Jarvis. So for this prairie boy, that was a really big change. But you know, I muddled through it and I adjusted to the city and to the province. And I came actually in the middle of the 2015 federal election campaign. And in that campaign, there were 80 pro-life members of parliament that had a 100% pro-life voting record that were running for re-election, and only 40 of them won re-election. So just like that, we had lost over half of our pro-life MPs in the House of Commons. And so my colleague Alyssa and I were discussing, you know, like what can we do better? What needs to change to make sure that that doesn't happen again? As elections come and go, you know, you're going to win some seats, you're going to lose some seats, but losing half your seats is extremely severe. And so we said, no, if we keep doing the same things that we have been doing for like the 40 years prior to that over and over again, we're going to get the same result. I believe the quote is attributed to Einstein, which is, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and over again, expecting a different result. So we knew that we had to start something new, we had to start something unique, and that meant we had to start right now. So I just want to play this clip real quick. It's of a former pro-life member of Parliament, Stella Ambler, when she was representing a riding in Mississauga. And this is her speaking at the 2015 National March for Life in Ottawa. And so I just really, really want to encourage you to really listen to what she has to say and ask yourself personally, are you doing the things that she is asking for you to do as a pro-lifer?
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Parliament Hill. Thank you so much for being here. That's what I want to tell you, but I do have 2 requests for you. I want you to do 2 things when you get home. First of all, I'd like you to write your member of Parliament about the Carter Supreme Court decision lifting the ban on physician-assisted suicide. I want you to let all the MPs know, not just the ones that are here today, that this is not a good idea and that you don't support it. Let them know. Send a strongly worded email or letter to your member of Parliament about the Supreme Court decision. Secondly, I want you to find out who your pro-life candidate is, whether it's in your riding or the neighboring riding, and I want you to help them get elected this October the 19th. Those are my 2 messages. Thank you so much for coming out today.
So, there are so many pro-life organizations out there in Canada that all do, wonderful things. So the question is, do we really need to have another organization? Like, is it really necessary that right now exists? And so I just want to give you a brief overview of what the pro-life movement looks like across Canada. And we have some representation for that here this evening, which is great to see. You have educational organizations. So organizations that are focused on changing people's hearts and minds, increasing the number of people who identify as pro-life within this country, or increasing the number of people who support pro-life policies across this country. So organizations like CCBR, which is the Canadian Centre for Bioethical Reform. There's this National Campus Life Network, which is the umbrella organization for student pro-life groups on secondary and post-secondary campuses across Canada. You have local right to life groups. You have, for example, the Saskatchewan Pro-Life Association. So these groups are focused on changing hearts and minds. You have the pastoral groups, which are kind of your last line of defense. And we just heard from 3 wonderful women and the work that they're doing in Regina, as well as the Sisters for Life in Toronto and other places. I myself sit on the board of directors for 8 to Women, which is a crisis pregnancy center in downtown Toronto. We literally share a wall with a private abortion clinic. And so the work that our executive director, our volunteers, and I do believe that the Sisters for Life in Toronto do volunteer there as well, is so incredibly important. So the pastoral arm of the pro-life movement is out there taking care of abortion-minded women. And we just heard from them and the wonderful work that they did. And then there's the political movement, which is focused on, nominating and electing pro-life politicians. And so, you can go and so part of the political movement as well include organizations like We Need a Law, which goes and lobbies already elected, members of the Legislative Assembly or members of Parliament to either vote in favor of pro-life legislation or vote against legislation that is explicitly not pro-life. And they do wonderful work as well. But you have an in-between piece that's missing, because the fact of the matter is that you can go and change all the hearts and minds as you want, and you can go lobby all of the already elected politicians that we have as you want. But unless you have a group that's dedicated to nominating and electing pro-life politicians, when the clerk of the House of Commons is going down the center aisle of the House and calling out each member of Parliament by name on whether they will sit or stand for supporting our pro-life legislation, if we do not have enough butts in the seats, it's not going to make a difference. And Dr. Heilman was talking about that at the very beginning, dealing with all the legislation regarding C7 with medical aided dying, with euthanasia and assisted suicide. She and others can go lobby all the people that they wanted, but on these questions, most politicians are already pretty much set in stone. And it's important that we get our pro-lifers elected. And so that is why we exist to ensure that we are well represented in our legislatures right across Canada, and that we are passing legislation that's going to be reducing the abortion and assisted suicide rates. So what do we need to do to win? It's all about winning. Well, if you look at the House of Commons in Ottawa federally, there are 338 ridings, which means that you need 170 pro-life members of parliament in order to introduce and pass legislation. So just to reiterate, that's not 170 conservative members of parliament or 170 liberal members of parliament. It is 170 pro-life members of parliament. So currently we have 70 pro-life members of parliament, 70 members of parliament that have a 100% pro-life voting record. So that was an increase of 40 from the last election. But as you know, we need to go quite a bit further before we can begin to introduce and pass legislation, or in the case of C7, stop terrible legislation that is going to cost lives across this country. So we were successful in Alberta in 2019 in the spring, and then we were elected almost 30 pro-life members of the Legislative Assembly. So there are 87 MLAs in Alberta, which means that you need 44 for a pro-life majority. So we're not quite there, but I just want to play this quick clip, say that 10 times fast, of this young woman that we were able to elect from the Medicine Hat area, and what she was able to say against M506, which looked to expand abortion access in Alberta. These are the type of politicians that we're trying to elect every day in our organization across Canada. Oh.
It is my personal conviction that all human life is sacred and should be protected. I am unapologetically and unreservedly pro-life, and my constituents were aware of this when they sent me to this place. I imagine that everyone here has their own opinion on abortion and for their own unique reasons, but I'm not here to criticize the opinions of others. In fact, I'm proud to be a member of a caucus that recognizes the myriad of ways that one can approach this topic. We are all entitled to our own beliefs. I respect the member for St. Albert's right to her opinion, and in return, I hope that her and her colleagues would respect mine. That is democracy, after all. But my hopes that the honourable member will do that, Mr. Speaker, are quite low. Because time and time again, I have seen her and her colleagues take aim at me and my other colleagues for not falling in lockstep with their ideology. I stand here today to not only give a voice to the voiceless, the unborn, but also to the many Albertans and Albertan women who do not fall in lockstep with that former government's ideology. During the election and in my nomination, I met with countless young families, women, girls, men, everyone in between. Many of them hold similar views like the ones that I do. These Albertans are compassionate. They give generously to agencies for mothers experiencing a crisis pregnancy. They support families. They objectively and without judgment counsel young women, praying for them and giving them shelter and other necessities. They set up programs and centers that help young mothers get back on their feet, no matter their choice, and they work to make life better for women and families in times of great need. These Albertans do not deserve to be vilified, Mr. Speaker. They deserve to be heard. Mr. Speaker, I'm a young woman, and as such, I do take women's health very seriously. Many women struggle with real reproductive health-related issues, many of which go undiagnosed or are dismissed by medical practitioners entirely. Mr. Speaker, I am pro-life because I believe that all life is precious and worthy of dignity and respect. It is not something that I am ashamed of. It is a conviction that I and countless Albertans hold deeply and defend fervently. We are not a marginal portion of the population. The members opposite have been scowling at me this whole time, and if history is any indicator, the nastiness has only begun. But quite frankly, Mr. Speaker, I don't care. I have been open and transparent about my views from day one. My constituents know where my conscience is on this, Mr. Speaker, and many voted for me because of it. And while the NDP turn inside out and feign outrage over any time the words free and speech are used in the same sentence, I am proud to be in a party that celebrates and encourages diversity, a party that allows me to speak and vote my conscience on matters such as these.
And so the question is, like, what can you do as one person? What can one pro-life volunteer, how can one pro-life volunteer make a difference, you know, in a nomination campaign, in a leadership race, or even in a general election? And so we actually looked at one pro-life member of parliament from back home in Manitoba in the 2015 election, and how one extra pro-life volunteer could have made the difference between having one extra pro-life vote in the House of Commons or not. So I'll just play this last quick video for you folks here. just want to end with some quote here is, while the law may not be able to change the hearts of men, it does change the habits of men. Martin Luther King Jr. One thing that we do hear quite a bit is, oh, we know you change hearts and minds first, and then you change the law. But actually, it's a 1-2 punch, and it works well together if we just want to look at the numbers and statistics, which, of course, as a CPA, I'm very interested in. So if you look at some of the states in the United States, over the last about 15 years or so, they've been able to pass numerous state level, so gubernatorial legislation to reduce the abortion rates. So the two most effective ones that we've seen in the states are parental notification or parental consent. That means that there is a female minor that is seeking an abortion procedure, that either the parent or legal guardian must give consent for it, or at the very least be notified. In states where they pass this legislation, it's reduced the abortion rate by about 42%. Some states have completely defunded abortion from their public health care dollars. That has seen a reduction of the abortion rates by up to 37%. And at the same time, if you look at Gallup polling, before and after these types of legislation were introduced, passed, and came into force, before the number of people across all age cohorts, whether you're talking about millennials or boomers or Gen X, what have you, you see an increase in the number of people in every single age cohort over that time identify as pro-life. And the reason is because as much as the culture informs law, law also informs the culture, as Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. has said. So I encourage you, if you're not already within our organization, within our movement, you can pull out your phone this evening and just text the word join to that number, 647-490-1883. I will also leave a link in the chat box as well. And I just want to say that it's very pertinent that we're talking about this evening in Saskatchewan, because you might not be aware that last week there was an NDP backbencher that introduced a private member's bill that would ban any sort of information given to women outside of hospitals or private abortion clinics in Saskatchewan, these so-called bubble zones. And I am unaware of including prayers, by the way, for 40 Days for Life, that would also be banned within about 150-meter bubble around these bubble zones. So I'm unaware of any incident in Saskatchewan. And if there has been any incident, of course, there are provisions currently within the Criminal Code of Canada that should be applied for anyone that's harassing a woman going into a hospital or into a private abortion clinic. So I would encourage you to join us today, because if you're already in our database, we would have been able to inform you this past week to go and contact your local member of the Legislative Assembly to vote against this legislation when it comes for a second reading vote in the Legislative Assembly of Saskatchewan. If you're not within our database, there's no time than the better than now, pardon me, to join us, and then we can keep you informed of pro-life campaigns that are happening locally within Saskatchewan. So I know that some people are apprehensive about getting involved politically, but the fact of the matter is that while you might not want to get involved in politics, politics will definitely get involved with you. And the nice thing is that we do actually have the numbers, not just in Saskatchewan, but across Canada, to make a difference, as we saw from the last video. You folks in Saskatchewan should take great pride in that the vast majority of your members of parliament have a 100% pro-life voting record in the House of Commons. That is a testament to the values of the people in Saskatchewan, but not just that, for the people that have got involved. And it's, we could always use more help as well. So with that, I will wrap up the presentation here, and I will save a couple or share a couple of links. One is how to contact your MLA in Saskatchewan to encourage them to vote against what's called Bill CO5. That's the bubble zone legislation. And another link as well for a petition to against that legislation. So feel free to share that with your family, your friends, colleagues, fellow people in your parish or your church community as well.
Great, thank you, Scott. And thank you to all our panelists. So now we've opened it up for questions. There's a few questions in the chat, and one of them right here was specifically for Scott, and I'm going to just ask you that question right now. How might we as people of faith best inform our conscience to discern who best to vote for? Was one of the questions from our chat.
You're
There we
muted.
go. That's a good question. I suppose it depends what faith tradition you come from. So if you are a Catholic, whether you're a Latin Catholic, Ukrainian Greek Catholic, Chaldean Catholic, probably the document that's best to inform yourself with, as well as your fellow Catholics, is Evangelium Vitae, which is an encyclical issued by Pope St. John Paul II. And it goes very specifically through it about kind of the pride of place within those of us who live within democratic countries of placing those who are out there to defend life, whether it be putting more legal restrictions on abortion or assisted suicide or euthanasia. That's a very, very excellent document to refer to. It also specifically talks about, in one of the paragraphs, I believe it's the late 60s or early 70s, about what happens if you're in a country where there is no abortion legislation, and how do you as a legislator deal with that? And the morality of voting for certain types of legislation in order to begin to reduce the abortion rate. So it's an excellent document. As an organization, we have obviously more than just Catholics within our organization. We have 30,000 people in our database from coast to coast to coast. And there are a lot of people in there who are Protestant. There are people in there who are Orthodox, people in there who are Muslim, Hindu, Sikh, Jews. We also have a lot of people who are agnostic or atheist. And actually, to be frank, we have a lot of people who are not heterosexual as well, who are quite involved within the pro-life movement because they believe in the dignity and value of human life from conception until natural death. They usually just apply it from a scientific perspective. If you have any questions about who your most winnable pro-life candidate is in your riding, please do not hesitate to get a hold of us, and I will leave our email address there. So I hope that answers the question.
Thank you. We have a few other prepared questions as well for our panelists. Mary, there's quite a few questions here for you. So due to where we are in time, I'm going to just pick and choose here. One of these questions that came in was, how can we support Catholic health institutions not to give into the pressure to make medical aid in dying available to patients?
Well, truthfully, I feel like a lot of the strategies that Scott is talking about when we come to the questions of abortion are going to be very important when we're talking about euthanasia and assisted suicide as well. That really what we're looking for is conscience protection. That's part of our law, and that way it doesn't have to be debated as policy every time a policy renewal comes up. Really, the best way to do that is to have politicians, MLAs, and MPs who are willing to vote for conscience rights. I think that's probably the most important difference that the average person can make, is exactly the type of work that Scott is talking about. I also think further to that, just to be aware of the Catholic health facilities in your area and other faith-based facilities as well who have expressed their conscientious objection. Any small way that you can show your support for that, your appreciation for having that option of a safe haven in your community. I think that can go a long way just for just helping the staff who are there to continue living out the mission, vision, and values of their facilities. Hope that helps.
Thank you. We also had some questions here for Birthright. One of them was, what is the Birthright's biggest challenge? And what are the most common needs expressed by your clients?
Well, I think our biggest challenge is having people find us. We've been in Regina for 50 years, and yet we're not a household name. I'm not quite sure how to do that, but advertising that we're available, that we're free, that we're confidential, that we're always there would be great. And I don't really know how to do better than we've done, but that's kind of it. Do you want to answer the rest of it, Jose?
Sure.
What are our most common questions?
I I think it depends on what people are coming for, because we do see people come both from different situations and from different places in their situation. So we have people that come right from the very beginning, from the moment that they think they might be pregnant, or whether they're coming for a pregnancy test, or they just found out they're pregnant. And so usually in those circumstances where they're kind of in that making the decision stage, we find that what they're most looking for usually is that support that the sisters were talking about, is that, you know, their main concern is like, I'm alone, how will, like, I can't do this alone kind of thing. And so that's where the most important thing that we can do is to help show them that they're not alone, and where we can kind of help them see that we have all the resources and everything that they might need, and that we can kind of help them with anything that comes up. Other than that, usually when people come later on in their pregnancy, often it's more so material needs that they're needing, whether it's clothing for themselves or for their baby. In some cases it's diapers, in some cases it's housing. We kind of see it all. And we do also see a variety of ages. We see a variety of people expecting their first baby, people expecting, you know, they have several kids already, or they've had several abortions already, or they've had several abortions and they have several kids. We kind of see it all in terms of that. So material support is often quite popular, and that's kind of what we've been seeing a lot of in the past year, especially, but definitely also that support and having someone to talk to, having someone that helps answer questions that they might have of any kind.
And the second greatest need that we have, especially in this pandemic time, is more volunteers to do all kinds of things. There's all kinds of things people could help us with or be trained to do.
You can see the how to help section on our website if you have questions about that.
Great website. Look at the website.
Fantastic. Good. Okay. And we also have a question here for the Sisters of Life. And the question is, how do you, like your order, how do you reach out to women who are suffering? And maybe, I guess, to give that some context, maybe there's this idea that if a woman's suffering from abortion, maybe they aren't apt to approach a nun. So how do you do that outreach work?
Yeah, well, I could start, and then Sister Avelina can fill in on that. It's amazing how many women who are suffering after abortion are sitting right next to us in our pews outside of COVID time. So when we're all in church, there's so many people who are seeking mercy and healing, going to daily mass, going to Sunday mass. And so the amount of women that we have received that we're journeying with this year reached out to us after seeing just a small little line in the bulletin that says, if you're suffering after abortion, there's hope and healing. We're here for you. And then has our phone number. Or a number of women have reached out to us most recently by referral from a priest after going to confession. And so a number of priests, actually at the cathedral here at St. Michael's in Toronto, have referred a number of women after going to confession, and they say, you know, these Sisters of Life can help you with your grief, with your sorrow, with your desire for hope and healing. And so it is amazing when the women reach out to us. There's just this experience of walking on holy ground, and just this desire in our hearts to really just receive her with this love and compassion. And it's like the Lord going off to find that one lost sheep. And so we have this real celebration in our hearts to welcome them home and to begin the journey of healing and hope and peace.
Yeah. And then, yeah, I think it doesn't have to be a nun. It's just a lot of fear and anxiety to reach out for help, period, because they feel that they are unlovable. And if they were to say this to someone, they fully believe that they will be rejected or that they will be seen as a bad person. And so, yeah, I think every woman who's called us and shared with us their story, I think that's every single time it's a miracle, really. And I think prayer, we can't even see the economy of prayer and grace that's happening for that woman to have a phone call. Sometimes a woman would have her pamphlet in her bag for 2 weeks before she could pick up a phone. And sometimes she picks up the phone and then hangs up. So we have some missed calls, and we always text back or call back the missed calls because we don't know what she's calling for. It could be a volunteer, but it could be a woman suffering from abortion. And the only thing I would add to that also is, yes, it might be fearful to approach nuns or sisters about this thing which they think is the farthest from our experience. But the reality is we are also given the great gift of, because we represent the church, they know that when we give them words of mercy and grace, that it's coming also with like the stamp of God. Not that we have the authority of God, but it's just, they know that when we represent the Lord's love and mercy for them, that God can have mercy on them. And if God has mercy on them, then maybe they could forgive what they have done. You know, maybe they could allow themselves to be forgiven. And so it might be intimidating to approach nuns, but there's also the great gift of, representing that we represent someone bigger than ourselves, and that someone bigger than ourselves, so God, is also merciful towards you. And so, and also, just praying for the grace, all of us really, but just praying for the grace to be good ambassadors of that mercy by our voice, again, our tone of voice, our words, and we all make mistakes, but then just to cover everything in prayer.
Thank you. We have another question here in the chat for Scott. It says, to obtain a pro-life stance in Parliament, it would take a turnaround. The leader of the ruling party has stipulated that anyone running for the riding under their banner must be pro-choice. How will it be possible to elect 170 plus members?
Well, this is a good question. The current leader of the Liberal Party is the Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau, won't be leader forever. And a good way to get a pro-lifer or someone who at least is open to pro-lifers running for the Liberal Party of Canada in the future is, when there is a leadership race, to join the Liberal Party of Canada and vote for a pro-life leader. That's the only way it's going to get done, is by pro-lifers getting involved. We were very close to getting a pro-lifer elected as leader of the Conservative Party of Canada last summer in Dr. Leslie Lewis, which at this rate, there's probably going to be a leadership race in that political party, probably starting sometime in the late autumn, early winter, and we'll have another shot at it again. But it all depends on whether or not pro-lifers get involved. So the more pro-lifers get involved, the more people we get elected. In the last federal election in 2019, we were targeting 50 ridings to flip from being represented by pro-abortion MPs to pro-life MPs. And we were looking to get at least 20 door knockers per riding. So they would go out one night a week, so 3 hours for a shift for that 6-week campaign. So you're looking at 18 hours for a 6-week campaign, which is very easy to do. And door knocking is one of the easiest and actually most fun things that you can do to help a pro-life politician. In the ridings where we had enough volunteers, we won 100% of those ridings. In the ridings where we did not have enough volunteers, not enough pro-lifers actually put themselves forward to go out for one night a week, we only won, I think, a third of those ridings. So it's all up to you guys, right? It's all up to pro-lifers on, whether or not we're going to elect more pro-life politicians.
Thanks. And so I think I have a question that I would like to pose to maybe everyone here on the panel. I'm just going to share a little bit of a story. So when Bill C-7 was being debated, I believe, I called the federal health minister's office, making the mistake that it should have been the federal justice minister's office I should have called. And the response I got from the office was, well, talk to your MP. And so then I explained where I'm from, Saskatchewan, and that every single MP in my province had listened to their constituents and did not want this bill to go forward. Maybe if someone could broach this topic is, how do we overcome, I'm beginning to feel a sense of regionalism coming forth, and it's almost a division. And I see the Saskatchewan government sometimes, and when I contact my MLAs, they say, well, that's a federal issue. But I find that interesting because the carbon tax is a federal issue too, right? And that can be considered a social justice issue in some respects too as well. But I'm wondering why there isn't kind of this unity to speak up for something that really in Saskatchewan doesn't really reflect Saskatchewan values. And I guess included in that question would be, how do all of you continue to do your work with joy and without getting disheartened?
Can I take that one first?
Go for it.
Okay, all right. So I'll start with the joy one, actually. And I know I can speak for Alyssa on this, my colleague. We get great joy in working with a lot of the pro-life politicians that we do. They are under absolutely tremendous pressure from the media, from actually a lot of longtime staffers in every political party in Ottawa or in Regina. And especially on social media, particularly Twitter, which is why I'm on Twitter. I'm not a good person on Twitter. It's something that comes up in my confession way too often, but you have to be there because that's where they are, right? You have to go where they are. Sisters of Life will know that to a certain extent, at least physically on the ground. Where I struggle personally, and maybe a little more so than Alyssa, because she's been in it almost twice as long as I have. The toughest part of my job is not dealing with pro-abortionists. Like I can deal with someone on Twitter saying, "Oh, you and your wife and your newborn should have all been aborted. You're terrible people." Like it's not a great comment. Don't get me wrong, but like kind of water off a duck's back for me. The toughest part of my job is when I get, I think sometimes, undue and overly harsh criticism from other pro-lifers. Our organization, like any other organization or religious congregation, is going to make mistakes from time to time. And yeah, like we're not going to be moving as fast as we want. It's in our name right now. Like we are all trying to move as fast as we want. It's 300 babies a day in this country that get aborted. I'm not even talking about assisted suicide yet. I hate to think what those numbers are going to be in a couple of years, but it's 300 babies a day. You're talking about 11 babies every hour. So like since we started, on average, like we've already lost 11 kids, which is an insane thing to think about, and very, very disheartening. But yeah, it's from other pro-lifers that the undue harshness of, and sometimes unnecessary, I find, criticism directed at us, oftentimes personally, makes the joy thing a little more difficult. That's not to say that we don't welcome constructive criticism. We absolutely do. That's the only way that we're going to get better. There are lots of things that I've proposed to Alyssa that we've implemented that actually have crashed and burned. And we have to have the humility to say, okay, well, that didn't work. That was stupid, but maybe we can tweak this, tweak that, and go forward. I'm sure the ladies at Birthright have tons of stories about that, about the wording on what works and what doesn't work with women when you're kind of going through your script, because you're more or less seeing, as individualistic as you are, you're more or less seeing the same type of thing day in, day out. So you get to test certain things to get to a happy conclusion quicker, faster. And some things that you think of that might work when you test, when you say it, doesn't land well. I'm sure they've come across that. In terms of regionalism, but and dealing with politicians who are not pro-life, of course, it's always saying, if it's someone who directly represents you in your federal or provincial constituency, you always say, my vote depends on this, and I am seeing how you're going to vote in the House of Commons or Legislative Assembly. And if you do not vote the right way, you don't have my vote in the next election. And if there's someone who's going to vote the right way, I'm going to get me and as many people from my church as possible to go and help that person in the riding to get rid of you. You have to be you don't want to start with that, but when you get that response, you want to meet that, right? You need to push back. But to get to the crux of the question, you live in Saskatchewan, the justice ministers from the island of Montreal, there's a severe disconnect there. And so that's our job as an organization, is to identify the pro-lifers in Montreal, to get them to put pressure on him. Now, certain ridings are going to have more pro-lifers than others, but certainly there's at least 1,000 pro-lifers. Well, we know statistically from different polling and Statistics Canada, there's at least 1,000 pro-lifers in every riding in this country, far, far, far more. So it's our job to build up the list to such a point that when David Lametti, the Minister of Justice, makes a unwise decision or a very not pro-life decision, that he hears it from 1,000 people within his riding. Now, this view about politicians is that 1,000 votes in David Lametti's riding isn't going to actually change. But, and this is going to sound insane, a federal member of parliament that gets 10 individual emails on one single issue within the 24-hour period, they think the world is falling in around them. So you can imagine if 1,000 people and LaSalle and Mar are emailing David Lametti saying like, hey, I hate the thing that you're doing, they're going to lose their minds. So that's something that we're working on, something that unfortunately takes time. It's a function of time, but we are working hard at it.
Does anyone else want to add to Scott's comments?
Can we mention just where we get joy? We'd love to weigh in on that.
Yes, please.
Yeah, so here is the beautiful thing. Our founder, John Cardinal O'Connor, who was Archbishop of New York, and he had each of the sisters have a little sign in their room that said, there can be no sisters of life without joy. And it's kind of presumptuous. You're like, wow, okay, well, where is that coming from? And we were talking about this, and we're listening to our founders' conferences at table when we're having breakfast. And really, it's the Eucharist. For us as Sisters of Life, and for all Catholics, the center and the source and the summit of our joy, our life, our love, really new wine, new grace, new hope, new mercy is the Eucharist. And for us as sisters, we're contemplative active. So we spend half of our day in prayer. And that's, our founder would say, because really what we're up against, and you all know this as Catholics, as Christians, is we're in a spiritual battle. And our founder would identify the demon of the culture of death is the contempt for human life. This is a demon that we're fighting up against, powers and principalities. And so contemplative prayer, our Eucharistic prayer, our Holy Mass, Holy Hour, Liturgy of the Hours, that is the center and the source of our joy. And then from there fuels all of our apostolic works. So that's, and then you want to say
I just want to say two things. One is community life. That's why we do things together. Is we can't do this on our own. We just really can't. We'll burn out and very quickly. But in this comment, there's 7 of us. And again, our founder really stressed the importance of community life. We're not just 7 people working together. We're 7 people as a community, really striving to live the family life, and love begins at home. So we can't start saving people outside of our homes if even within our homes there's not love there. We have to start at home. And then a second thing I just want to mention is there's this thing called delighting in her. So I didn't speak about our crisis pregnancy as much because we had the beautiful Birthright people here as present as well. But the secret that we have is when we serve women in crisis pregnancies, and oftentimes the crisis pregnancy is not an isolated event. There's other chaos happening in their lives, and this is one on top of many. And so when that happens, she's filled with a lot of anxiety, a lot of fear, and when people are in that state, they react in particular ways. But so it's just tapping into the delighting in her, even though she's speaking like that, or speaking out of fear, or speaking out of an anger, we look at her and we see her goodness. So our founder was very big on this. We're not the good people doing good things to the people in need. No, we're allowing the person before us, we're allowing ourselves to be moved by her goodness. So we pray to the Holy Spirit to be like, give me your eyes to see her the way you see her, to love her the way you love her. and seeing her goodness, almost like a parent looking at her child, even if her child is kicking and screaming, there's love that gives you the energy to love her through the many ups and downs of being tempted to abortion. And that allows it not to be my work against her or my project or this person is an issue or a problem to solve. No, she's a person that is very lovable, and I'm going to come beside her and we're going to walk together and we're going to find freedom and joy with the help of Jesus, obviously. And when that happens, it's no longer a work or job, it's an act of love. And that's what we're made for, you know? So when we do that, we find reserves within us that we didn't think we had. And it also allows for joy. So yeah, community life, the Eucharist, prayer, and allowing ourselves to be moved in love by the person before us. So, yeah.
Thank you. Sharon, did you want to add something? Oh, you're on mute, Sharon.
Thank you. Is that better?
Yes, we hear you.
Okay, there we go. Thank you. You know, I think at Birthright, we feel that when we're in the office, whoever comes in was supposed to meet with us. And that it's a very humble thing. We don't really have we don't have anything to give them, but we're there. And just because we're there, somehow God's going to bless that. I think we very much feel we're called to be faithful and to be present. And it's maybe a small thing to be present, but I think that that's a powerful thing, especially in our society and our culture today. One day, my daughter at the time was working in a grocery store, and she came home and gave me the biggest hug and said, "I am so proud that you're my mother." I thought, wow, I should write this down somewhere. And she said to me that I had stopped in her grocery store and waved as I left. And the next person at her till asked if I was her mother. And she said, yeah. She said, you know, she's amazing. I was going to have an abortion, and I went and I talked to her. And now my daughter is the most wonderful thing in my life. And so I think what gives us joy is the hope that we are able to enable the moms who come to find that joy and that wonder and that great gift that their children are. I don't think we necessarily know about it all the time, but we just have to trust that somehow, just simply by being there, we can somehow be of help.
Great, thank you. And finally, Mary, do you have a response to this question as well?
Yeah, that joy question is such a just profound one. I think we all need to get in touch with what brings us joy in our work before we can go back out and do the work that needs to be done. For myself, I'm the ethicist at St. Paul's Hospital, and my office is situated within our mission office at St. Paul's. So the director of mission is right next door to me, so is the coordinator of mission. And part of what I think brings all three of us joy is seeing the work of the sisters who came before us carried out all around us, all we're at the hospital. We have just wonderful healthcare workers working at St. Paul's who are ready to go that extra mile to care for the sick, to be Christ's hands in the world, even if they themselves aren't ready to phrase it that way. And I know that at our institutions across the province and the Catholic ones, but also in the other institutions as well, in your own hospitals in Regina and Moose Jaw and everywhere else that I know you're from, there are people who are ready to give of themselves to care for other people. And that is an incredibly beautiful thing to be able to watch. You also mentioned, Allison, kind of some questions about, given that Saskatchewan, we are doing well in the pro-life world, comparatively speaking. What do we do on that national level? And one of the things that I'm very proud of for the Catholic Health Association of Saskatchewan is that we do belong to the Catholic Health Alliance of Canada. So we're able to offer that support, some of the good lessons learned out here in Saskatchewan, and bring that to the national level to hopefully have a bigger influence beyond just the borders of Saskatchewan. So that's another thing that I'm very proud of our organization for. Thank you.
Great. Well, I think we'll wrap it up there. I don't see any more questions in the chat. I just want to express gratitude for the participants, the panelists, and everyone who joined us this evening. I hope everyone has been inspired by the conversations and continue to go out and serve their brothers and sisters wherever they find themselves. And finally, before we go, because it is Reverence for Life month, it's also the month of Mary, if I just ask that we could all join and say the Hail Mary before we go on with our evening. Thank you so much, everyone. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed are you among women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Amen. In the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. Thank you, everyone. Have a great evening.